This rig rundown caught my rig in a state of some mess. I just got the Patulator 8000 that you see with the green cables in the middle of the board, so everything's kind of in disarray as I reorganize things. The two amps that I use are an Orange Crush 35 RT and a Monoprice 15-watt tube amp. My very first guitar was this Squier Affinity Strat. I bought it my sophomore year of college on the assumption that buying a guitar would force me to learn how to play it, which turned out to be more or less accurate. A couple years later, I upgraded the pickups and changed out the pick guards, so it's a little bit upgraded from what the stock Squier would be. About 2 years ago, my piano teacher talked me into buying this Les Paul Studio Goth, which I had had my eye on for, I don't know, the better part of a decade. But her line to me was that an instrument will never go to waste in a musician's hands. On piano, I was mostly playing jazz, which led into playing jazz guitar as well for the first time. And that got my attention turned on to more of a jazz-style guitar. I got a great deal on this Epiphone Dot Studio, and added the pickup covers later for a classier look. The first time I saw a Jazzmaster, I was hooked. Had to have one. This is a Squier Vintage Modified Jazzmaster. I changed out the pick guard about 2 weeks ago, but otherwise it's entirely stock. I'll admit to being a big TPS fanboy, and after seeing Dan's Les Paul Jr. with the P90 on the show, I was stoked to find this on Reverb. It's an Epiphone SG Jr. with a P90. They did a short run of these in 97 and 98, and this guitar is rock and roll all day long. On to a quick tour of the pedals, since that's what most of you came here for. I've got two off the board on the floor. One is this Nether Octaver that I bring with me when I jam with a drummer, fill out the bottom end, play around with simulating bass. And I keep the Crybaby Mini out there too. Its current draws less than 1 milliamp, and I leave it on battery. It's easier than taking up space on the board. As I said at the beginning, the Patulator is the newest thing. What I didn't realize when I got it is the jacks are too close together to use two of the pancake-ended jacks, so I haven't been able to fill the whole thing out. I had to order some of the more traditional plugs, but I was able to get at least 6 in here. And it was great in the middle of a jam to be able to quickly swap the order of effects without needing to really plug or unplug any of the pedals. Right up at the front of the chain is this Polytune 2 Mini. It's a tuner. It's great. On the board right here at the moment in the picture are the DoD Carcosa and Earthquaker Terminal, two more modern fuzzes that I got recently. I haven't had a chance to really work out the Terminal yet, but the Carcosa is huge. I really, really love it. And later on, when we get to the sound samples, at one point I swapped these out for a TS-808 clone and for a Muffuletta. This Proton envelope filter is the heart of my sound. I use it a lot, really love how juicy it is and how rich it gives the sound. The Unicorn's a recent addition. I had a Deja Vibe 2, the cream-colored one with the foot pedal, and it was just too big to be practical to use. I like that I can connect the Unicorn to an expression pedal if I wanted to, but so far I've found that the tap tempo is plenty. The 0 Point is one of my can't live without pedals. I am a huge flanger guy, but I really never had a flanger that I loved until I got a hold of this one, and it's incredible. It's like it's its own instrument, honestly. The Nightwire, the way this board is set up right now, is actually in the effects loop of the Rubberneck, but I have the Rubberneck effects loop hooked into the Patulator so I can move effects in and out of it. I've been struggling with this because the Nightwire seems like a really cool, powerful effect, but I haven't been able to get it to really sound great in the Rubberneck effects loop on top of other stuff. If I'm just messing around, it sounds terrific, but in a mix with loops going on the ditto and all kinds of things, it just gets lost. The rest of these pedals run inside the effects loop of the amp. The Echorec is another of my can't miss pedals, always on my board. I love the multi-tap patterns, the rich warmth of it, and to keep the tone knob around 1 o'clock just to keep the bottom end rolling off a little bit as it repeats. I've got the Rubberneck, which I'm crazy about. This one, like the 0 point, really feels like an instrument that you can play while you're playing guitar. Love the features. It feels really intuitive to use for me, and it's great to have a tap tempo delay alongside the Echorec, which doesn't have tap. Onto the Monument, which I got more recently. I've fallen in love with harmonic tremolo, but it took a long time to find one that really sounded the way I wanted it to. And I love that this gives me harmonic and standard tremolo on a single pedal. The tap tempo's been really handy as well. The blue tape is there to dim 2 of what are the brightest LEDs known to man. Finally, the Ditto is the last thing before heading back into the Amp FX return. I use it for practicing, but I've also been using it a lot now that I'm jamming with a drummer to be able to lay down chords or other parts and then continue to play over it. And of course, there's the bucket full of pedals that aren't on the board. I had the good fortune to be out jamming with a friend on Saturday night and recorded the session on my phone. I've clipped out some of the highlights so you can hear the way the different effects sound together.